And welcome back, you derps, to the Durp Show podcast. I am your host, Big Ern. This is podcast episode number 6. And today we're going to be talking about the one that got away. But first and foremost, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate the support. Off the top, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ezb14. Check out my website, ezb14.com. Follow, subscribe on that YouTube, SoundCloud, all that other stuff. But let's get started with the show. I've been debating if I should put this out or not because it's kind of a sensitive topic, and since Valentine's Day is coming up, and by the time you'll hear this, it's going to be a few weeks after that. But, you know, I figured I should have my say on it now and get it over with, and take what I'm about to say with like a big grain of salt. You know, in my mind, I must have told this story a dozen times, and I might have romanticized it a bit. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I'm only human. I can just think about the days I've had. And there are times where I tell myself that I was crazy, that this girl didn't like me, that it was all in my head and I was just imagining it. But let me just tell you the story and then you guys can figure it out. So gather around, kids. It's storytelling time. So let's go back to the fall of 2008. By this time, I've survived freshman year. And during that freshman year, you know, I met a lot of people. I'm horrible with names, you know, just don't feel offended if I forget your name or mispronounce it. I'm just the worst. Faces, though, I'm a little better, so I can kind of remember people. Anywho, this was the first day back to school, and I'm heading to my first class, all right? And it's psychology 2. And I'm freshed out, clean cut, fresh dress shirt, brand new sneakers on my feet, you know. Must have been looking really good. Now, this is fall of 2008, so it's hot as hell. You know, because like fall in Southern California, that's just like an extended version of summer. It's super hot the very first few weeks we get there. So I'm pretty sure like I'm sweating profusely by this time. By the time I walk into campus. And I no longer live on campus either. I got a little room at the University Village Towers, the most expensive but best looking apartment complex. And my first class was in this UNHL hall, which is one of the biggest lecture halls on campus, holds like 300 people, has 3 big projectors, you know, 3 whiteboards. It was pretty legit. Anywho, so right outside the building, it's where you have to wait. There's this other building right across from it, and it has like an overshade and a roof. So I'm under the roof, if you will, just, you know, chilling by the shade, waiting until the class that's in there gets out. So I must have been like 10 minutes early. And there were other students outside too. There's another like bench area off to the right where a lot of people hang out. So I'm there just in the shade. I'm rocking my little iPod Nano. This is before I had my iPhone. And, you know, I must have been really digging into this song because I had my headbuds on and I'm I remember just kind of nodding off like, yeah, this is my jam. And, I glance over to the right and I see this girl standing there. I glance back over to the lecture hall. She takes off her earbuds because she was also listening to some music. She walks over. She's like, hey. So I take off my earbuds because I always think it's rude when people are talking and you have earbuds on. So I'm like, hey, what's up? She's like, oh, how was your summer? And I was like, oh, it was good. I went back home. I chilled with my boys. I got to see my family. And then I flipped it on her. I was like, well, how about you? How was your summer? Now, during this whole conversation that was about to happen, that is currently happening, I don't know who this girl is. All right, this is a Durp moment if I ever saw one. But I tried to play it off, so I kept asking her questions like, oh, are you taking this class too? And when's your discussion class? And, things like that. As I try to figure out from where I know her from. Like I said, I'm bad with names, but I'm good with faces. And she didn't come up to me and tell me her name. So she looked vaguely familiar, and during our discussion, I figured it out. I met her back freshman year, and the first time I saw her was I was heading over to the dining hall by myself. And yes, I used to eat by myself the first few weeks I got to UCR. I was coming from a small town. I didn't know anybody there. I didn't even know my own roommates back then when I was first starting out. So as I'm leaving our hall, you need a key to get into our hall. And if you're just visiting, you needed somebody to open the door from the inside out so then they can come in, Well, I'm walking down the hall, and it's a really long hall, and somebody's standing outside. I can't really see her, and then I open the door. I open the door for her. She gives me a look, but not like in a bad way. She just kind of looks at me and says, thanks. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And I go eat. Well, anyways, so that's from the first time I recognized her. And now she's talking to me, and we walk in. We sit like right around the middle section of the whole class. And now there's another girl. Everybody's piling in. There's a grip load of people taking that class. So there's another girl in front of me, a blonde girl who I also met freshman year. My homie was jocking her. And actually, I think he still is, but that's a whole nother story. So this girl that I met, I went to a bonfire with her. So she's sitting up front. She turns around. She recognizes me. And she's like, oh, hey. She's like, what's up? How was your summer? And, here we go again. I asked basically the same questions that I was just talking to this girl who's sitting next to me. I was basically just repeating myself like, oh, like, it was good. It was good. How was your summer? You're taking this class too? When's your discussion? I was a derp. So class starts and we're paying attention, taking notes, and, I got to see her throughout the quarter. I thought she was flirting with me a little bit, but it was simply just like a simple thought. And I also thought, she was just being nice to me. That's it, because she is a nice person. I got to know her a bit more, but not like know her a lot. I don't even think I had her number that quarter. I just went throughout the whole quarter just seeing her there. I think I had her school email, and my email game was like really strong at UC Riverside. I have a bunch of emails. So then our quarter finished, and I don't even know what grade she got in that class, and we just kind of stopped seeing each other. But that was normal. We had 3 quarters at UCR, so it was 10 weeks of instruction with 1 week of finals, and then we would switch it up. So it was normal. It was a standard thing, Sometimes I'd see people, sometimes I didn't. It was a big school too. It was big, but it was small for a UC. But then again, I'm coming from a really small high school here, so winter quarter just came and went. I don't even think I saw her during that time. We're all busy individuals, and then came spring quarter, and I found her once again, and we were walking to the same class, and we figured out that we had the same class, you know. It was a much smaller class. It was a media culture studies class with like a professor who all the girls had a crush on. And then, you know, we sat right next to each other and, you know, started talking, became study buddies, basically friends who went to class together, you know. We swapped phone numbers to keep in touch. By this time, I'm rocking my new, fresh iPhone 3G. I let her borrow a textbook to a class I previously took the year before that, and actually she still has it to this day. You know, she invited me over to her place, and, you know, she was cool. She was pretty cute, you know. I like making her laugh. She got my dry sense of humor. And I think I knew she was like officially jockeying was when she sent me a text, and it was either like Easter or some other random holiday that happens in the spring. That's why I think it's Easter. She had texted me like Happy Easter out of the blue, you know, and I remember reading it and I was like, you know, I get Merry Christmas or Happy New Year's, like those texts make sense, but for somebody to text me Happy Easter on a Sunday, and I was hanging out with my aunts, I was like, so that's a little weird. But, you know, I didn't point that out. I think I replied like, oh yeah, you know, likewise, what are you doing? Some stupid shit that I would say. Well, I always felt like she was dropping like little hints that she wanted to come over to my place, you know. She was like, we would walk to class and after class, and she would be like, oh, you know what I can really go for right now? Some pizza. You know, and I was such a derp that I was like, oh man, I got some frozen pizza in my fridge. That's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to take it out and heat it up and eat it by myself. Thanks for the idea. Peace. And, you know, it was little things like that I didn't realize it till after I walked away. And then I was like, wait a minute. I could have said, hey, did you want it to come over? Maybe have a slice? But it was pretty bad. I remember this one time, too, after a weekend. I saw her back in class, and, you know, something looked a little different or off about her. But I didn't really say anything. And like I said, we would sit in the same spot every class. So there was another girl who always sat in front of us too. She turned around that week and she was like, hey, what's up? She's like, did you guys do the reading over this weekend? But as soon as she finished saying that, she looked at her and she went, hey, did you do something with your hair? And she's like, yeah, I did. And then they started talking. They're like, oh, it looks really nice. She's like, oh, thanks. You know, what kind of color she used and other bullshit. But at that moment, I realized that was the thing that I saw that was a little different. But I didn't even point it out. Like I wasn't even thinking about it. And here I am sitting next to her for like the last 30 minutes. It's pretty bad. Anyways, along came, you know, this dreadful week called finals week. And this girl had suggested like we should study together, either like at a library or my place. And that kind of set a few alarms off for me. I kind of panicked. I figured it was my time to make a move, you know. It was at that point. It was to a point where I think even like our classmates around us knew we had something going on. And, you know, I've never had a girl over to my room before. I didn't even do anything freshman year. I was just trying to survive it. And here we are. I'm a sophomore. And this was college. You know, it was to be expected. You know, and I grew up in a small town where all the girls I knew, I didn't really have a desire to go out with. Not to say they're not pretty. But, you know, we all grew up together. We all went from elementary school to high school. We went through puberty. I never really saw them in that light that, like, we needed to hook up. Or that's why I think not a lot of us were hooking up in high school either. There was, of course, a small percentage of them, but I didn't faze me back then. So when this girl was trying to say, hey, maybe we should study together, like in your place. I thought she wanted to come over, and I freaked out. I didn't want to say no, but I also didn't know what to do in this situation. So I'm talking like the day before we took our final, I texted her with some passive-aggressive bullshit like, hey, I'm going to be studying all day in my room. Do you want to meet me at the library or something? She was like, no, that's too far. I was like, okay, well, whatever. And then we started texting for each other like, oh, what'd you get for this question on the study guide or some shit. Then later, as the day turned to night, I tried to be all forward about it. Like, hey, we should meet up. Here's my room number. Like 304 or some shit. And by that time, she was over it. She was like, no, I'm going to pass. And it kind of just played out so awkwardly. It was pretty bad. And I had those text messages saved on my phone. The iPhone doesn't delete them, so I still had them, and I showed them to my friends months later, and they just shook their heads. They're like, yeah, you dropped the ball, but typical Big Ern. Now, to say that there's a small silver lining to this story, there is. Because during that spring quarter, I met another girl, and I had her for like all 3 classes, and she recognized me. She said, what's up? Now, about 1 year later, this girl I was going to go out with, but I didn't know that at the time. So I just said, what's up, and I just kind of met her that time, the very, very first time. And that would just snowball into effect the next following year. But that's a whole nother story. Well, back to this girl is that we ended it really awkwardly, she did, I think she got an A in the class and I got a B, but it just ended really awkwardly. And I went all summer just kind of thinking about it, because I went back home for the summer, and then I came back junior year, and when I came back junior year, I was like creeping on Facebook. And I found her profile page, which was shocking, because when I knew her, she didn't have, any of that. She didn't have Twitter. She didn't have Facebook. So now she did, and I found her page, and I found out she had a boyfriend at this time, a new boyfriend. It was the following fall. I guess there were... The summer had passed, and then that following fall, so this would be junior year, she had hooked up with them, or they had made it official by then. And this is the very first time I'm seeing this, so I'm a little jealous. I started hating on the guy. In fact, I don't even know the guy, never met him. Could be the nicest guy ever, but I was like, whatever. And at the time, I think my friend was visiting me, and I had like the Facebook page opened, and I had told him the story. I was like, yo, this girl was jocking me, and now she has a boyfriend. And he kind of pointed out the fact that he looks exactly like me. He started clowning on me, really. He started laughing. He said, dude, guy looks like you. He's a big, tall Mexican guy. And I was like, no. And then I looked at the guy. I was like, oh, he kind of does look like me, but whatever. Well, junior year happened, and this other girl I talked to, it rolled into a relationship by the spring quarter, almost to the dot, and we broke it off during the summer. And then senior year came, and it blew by me so quick that I didn't really get to see this girl like a lot on campus. I mean, I saw her once or twice. Well, anyways, right after we graduated, she randomly, I think, found me on Facebook. She sent me a friend request. Now, I'm not the kind of guy that sends people a friend request. You have to request me. And she did that. All right? But I'm also not the kind of guy to just accept any friend request, And thought it was weird, so I sat on it for a while. I remember that I had graduated because I had moved back home. And by this time, I'm talking to my friends from back home. And we're all hanging out, and I'm showing them this picture. And what they saw was a cute girl trying to send me a friend request. But I didn't take it that way. I thought it was a little weirder, a lot more sinister. Like, why did she want to be friends? You know, after all, we ended it so awkwardly. And if I remember correctly, I texted her during the summer, and she never replied back. She left me hanging, and I still felt some type of way by that time. Still felt bitter. You know, I thought we were friends. You know, I thought she couldn't reach out to me sooner. It had to be after we both graduated. Well, one night, like after some heavy drinking, I was on Facebook and I said, you know, screw it. And I accepted her friend request. So now I just sat back and I waited for like a, hey, what's going on type of message on my Facebook. And the day passed, and then a week passed, and a few weeks, and then it became like 2 months and nothing. Not a single like or comment, you know? I posted a few things here and there, but she still didn't say what's up. This is back before Facebook had its interface, right? Its current interface. And if you would go on your profile, on the left side there would be a list of 10 friends. They still kind of do that, but it would be a list of 10. Now, 7 of those people were people who visited your page last or who were checking on your stuff. And then 3 people would be just complete randoms that would get switched out if you kept hitting the refresh page. So what bothered me was that she wasn't saying anything, but her picture would show up on that little section after I hit refresh and refresh and refresh. And I thought maybe it's because I was checking her shit out. So I stopped. Stopped looking at all her pictures, her comments, her status updates. Like, I just completely stopped. I looked at everybody else's, but hers, I would see it. I'd just be like, all right, moving on. And after a few weeks of trying this, you know, she was still there when I go to my profile page and refresh. So I started taking jabs at her on Facebook, but like low key. You know, I think like one of the status I wrote was, I have a theory that all women are crazy. So far, I haven't been proven wrong. ... And then later she would respond. I don't even know if she was responding, but she would update her status to say, oh, is that so? And she wouldn't give any more content other than that. And all her friends were commenting on her status saying, oh, yeah, is that so? Like, what are you referring to? And she would just kind of like give them winks and reply that way. We went back and forth. Well, I thought we went back and forth, exchanging kind of statuses that related to each other, you know, because during one of the exchanges, I had randomly sent a friend request to some other chick I didn't know, and I don't know how that happened. I had like only one common friend between me and her, and it was just this random dude I went to high school with. Well, anyways, this new girl, she wrote on my Facebook wall. She's like, hey, thanks for the ad. And I saw it like 30 minutes later and responded with like, hey, I don't know who you are. I must have added you by mistake. And then she replied back saying, oh, wow, okay, I guess I'll just delete you then. But she didn't. In fact, she went and she liked a few of my statuses, which was weird because I didn't know who this girl was. Well, it just so happens that this other girl here that we're mad dogging each other, she updates her status to say he's just not that into you. And I'm like, wait a minute. She's probably just talking about the movie, right? So I clicked to see the comments on that. And her friends were like, I think one of her friends was like, oh, you mean just like the movie? Ha ha, winky face. She liked that comment. And I kind of flipped out. She had to be talking to me, right? the whole world revolves around me and there's no other explanation. And I ended up deleting that random chick off my Facebook friends. I just blocked her because she wouldn't delete me, and I was like, whatever. And it was little things like that back and forth that made me really mad. And I wrote this little blog piece on my site called "This Can't Be Life." You can still find it on there. You just have to search for it. You know, I was frustrated at this point. You know, I was such a derp. And every now and then, because the girls I was talking to afterwards, I told them that situation, how it played out. And they would tell me, yeah, that girl was into me, and I was too stupid to realize it. This girl, who I will not name, is the one that got away because she's the one that never happened. I beat myself up a lot. You know, I'm very critical of my own work and success, and I take failure to heart. You know, it messes with my self-esteem. And just to kind of think that it just kind of snowballed from there, and these past relationships and all that, it kind of accumulates and it hits me sometimes. I spoke to one friend about this episode and about what I was going to talk about. He told me not to do it. He said it was too soon for my podcast, but really, who's listening right now? You know, I'm starting from the ground up. I left out so many key things in this story that I really doubt this girl I'm talking about, that I'm referring to, who I will not name, would know that I'm talking to her. I really doubt it. And that's the story. That's where I'm going to end it, guys. Well, thanks again for listening. I know this was a longer podcast, but, you know, thanks for hanging in there. Lastly, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ezb14. Check out my website, ezb14.com. Follow the Durp Show podcast on SoundCloud and on YouTube. Email me with anything you want. That's the Durp Show podcast at gmail.com. And remember, Durp spelled with a U. I am your host, Big Ern, aka ezbizzle. I'm out. Lately.
My will is torn to pieces. Pick up the pieces. Yeah. Been feeling this way for so many days. I wrote you a letter this morning. I wrote you this morning, yeah. And tried to explain my selfish ways. 'Cause ever since I walked out, I haven't felt alive. I'm half the man that I was with you by my side. I wish that I could dry all the tears that you cried. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it.